Welcome back, my friends. So good to have you here with me again. Last time we left off with the most tender moment, didn't we? Diep had just come home. An older woman with 20 years of longing in her eyes was sitting in her living room, and the truth was hanging in the air like a held breath. This continues my own take on these characters, my own gentle guess at how their hearts might find each other. So let me answer the question you've been carrying since last time. Did Diep feel it? Did her heart know before the words came? Yes. Oh yes. Here's what happens. Diep hands the older woman a cup of tea, and as she does, their fingers brush. And the woman holds on. Just a moment too long. Diep looks up, puzzled, and sees something she's never seen from a stranger before. Tears. Quiet ones, sliding down a weathered face. "I'm sorry," the woman whispers. "You just look so much like someone I lost a long time ago." Diep doesn't understand yet. But something stirs in her chest. A strange, warm ache she can't explain. James watches from across the room, his heart pounding. He knows what's coming. He's been waiting for this moment for days. And gently, so gently, he says, "Diep, sit down with us. There's something this woman has wanted to tell you for a very long time." Here's what I find beautiful about this. James doesn't force the truth out. He doesn't blurt it. He creates a soft, safe space for it to land. That's what real love does. It doesn't shove the door open. It simply makes sure the room is warm before someone walks through. So Diep sits. She holds her own cup of tea now, sensing the weight of the moment without knowing its shape. And the older woman takes a long, trembling breath. "Diep," she says, "when you were small, barely up to my waist, you used to ask where your mother was. You used to call out for her at night." Diep goes very still. "I heard you," the woman continues, her voice breaking. "Every single night for 20 years I heard you, even from far away, even when you couldn't see me. But here's what surprised me. Diep doesn't pull away. She doesn't gasp or run. She just sets her tea down, slowly, and looks at this woman with eyes that are starting to fill. Because some part of her, some deep, buried, little girl part, has been waiting for this voice her whole life. The room is silent. James doesn't move. Nye is asleep in the next room. And two women sit across from each other, 20 years dissolving between them like morning fog. And what comes next is the moment everything has been building toward. Let's pick up right there, in that quiet room, with the truth finally spoken aloud and hanging tender in the air. Diep's voice comes out small. "Mother?" Just that one word. A word she hasn't said to anyone in 2 decades. And the older woman, Diep's real mother, nods, unable to speak, her hand pressed to her mouth. What happens next isn't dramatic. It's better than dramatic. It's real. Diep doesn't leap into her arms. How could she? 20 years don't melt in a single second. Instead, she sits there, tears running freely now, and she asks the question that's been locked inside her since childhood. Why? Why did you leave me? And her mother tells her, not with excuses, but with honesty. She explains the circumstances that tore her away all those years ago, the impossible choices, the nights she spent wishing she could turn back time. She doesn't ask to be forgiven. She only asks to be heard. And Diep listens. With that big, quiet heart of hers, she listens to every word. What I love about this moment is that Diep doesn't pretend the pain wasn't real. She doesn't rush to say, "It's okay," when it wasn't okay. She lets herself feel all of it, the hurt and the love tangled together. That's what makes her forgiveness, when it comes, mean something. Real forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's choosing love anyway. And slowly, something shifts. As her mother speaks, Diep begins to understand. This wasn't a woman who didn't want her. This was a woman who never stopped wanting her, not for a single day. The leaving wasn't the absence of love. It was a wound that love survived. Diep reaches across the small space between them. She takes her mother's trembling hand in both of hers, the same hands that once sang her lullabies, now older, now shaking, now finally close enough to hold. I used to imagine you, Diep says softly. When I sang to my own daughter at night, I wondered if you ever sang to me. And her mother breaks completely. Every night, she weeps. I sang to you every night, even when you couldn't hear me. James, standing quietly by the doorway, wipes his own eyes. He doesn't say a word. Some moments don't belong to him, and he knows it. This one belongs to a mother and a daughter, 20 years in the making. And then something beautiful begins to bloom. Not a perfect ending, not yet, but a beginning. The first real beginning these two women have ever had. Because here's what's coming next. Forgiveness opens the door, but walking through it together, building something new, that's a whole different kind of brave. So now we sit in the gentle aftermath. The truth is out, the tears have come, and mother and daughter are holding hands across a small table in a small house, both of them changed forever. But a family isn't rebuilt in one evening. You feel that, don't you? There's still so much to figure out. Diep has a life here, a home. Little Nee, fast asleep, who has just gained a grandmother she's never met. And there's James, carrying his own heavy worries about the family debt, about borrowed money, about keeping their world steady through hard times. The mother knows this. She sees the strain in this little household. And here is where her love proves itself, not in words, but in action. Here comes the big moment. Over the next few days, the mother doesn't go back to Hanoi. She stays. She wakes early and helps Diep prepare breakfast. She walks near to summer school and listens, delighted, to the little girl's songs. She sits with James in the evenings and gently offers to help carry some of the weight he's been carrying alone. And one quiet morning, she says the thing that changes everything. I've been saving for 20 years, she tells them both, her voice steady now. Saving for the day I might find my daughter again. I always hoped I could give her something. Let me help, not to buy your love. I know I can't, but because helping the people you love is what a mother does. Diep starts to protest, but her mother takes her hand. Please, she says, let me be your mother, even a little, even now. And in that moment, you can see it. The wall that took 20 years to build is finally, fully coming down. Not because of money. Money is just the smallest part of it. It's coming down because Diep can see, plainly now, that this woman's love is real. It shows up. It stays. It rolls up its sleeves and helps. Diep wraps her arms around her mother. A real embrace this time, the kind a daughter gives. And the older woman holds her like she's been waiting her whole life to do exactly this. Because she has. This is the part that gives me hope. Love doesn't fix everything overnight, but when it's real, it keeps showing up day after day until the broken pieces start to fit together again. That's not a miracle. That's just love doing what love does. So the family begins, slowly, to become whole. There's still the debt to face, still a future to build, still 1,000 small moments ahead where this new family will learn how to be a family. But they'll face it together now, all of them. And what I believe comes next will be the most beautiful moment of all. The moment when this family, finally reunited, discovers that together they're strong enough to overcome anything still standing in their way.